to go through another roll call, please.
Director McLaren?
Here.
Director Ariki?
Here.
Director Calandry?
Here.
Director Urosic?
Here.
And Director Paris?
Present. One, check our engineering.
And Director, Phyllis Stannon? Here. Kate White? Craig Parton?
Here.
Okay, now we're on adoption of the agenda. We've had a request to pull item 11B. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda with the understanding that item 11B has been pulled?
I make a motion.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Second by Adam.
Second by Derek. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to adopt the agenda with the exception of item 11B by roll call vote?
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Ariki?
Yes.
Director Calandry?
Yes.
Director Urosic?
Yes.
And Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on public comments for non-agenda items. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment on a non-agenda item?
Yes, my name is Debbie Farrow.
Hi, Debbie. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yes, I would like to address you, the board, about Nettler Valley Mutual Water Company. We had a letter of request to waive the late charges on our account on the October meeting agenda, and it was going to be carried to December. And it wanted to ask for a consideration of that letter of request for waiver on board and be able to use the water that we have. We've got the new production request, and then we went on to receive the invoices for 2016 through 2019 for the water that we owed, and those invoices, and we paid the administrative assessments right off the bat. And then we learned about the possibility of transferring a carryover, and it was approved on your October meeting. And so just a little background of the entire thing has been if you can imagine, 2016 through 2019 alone is a great deal of money that we owed. And so we put into place, as soon as we got the invoices and everything, to deal with our customers, let them know what was going to have to happen, and had to increase our water rates for this year, 2021, so that we can be able to pay for the next year. Plus, we billed them for the usage for those years. Plus, we included 2020, even though we hadn't been officially invoiced for it yet. And we are in the process of collecting all of that to do that. But it was a big deal for our customers. We had to raise our own water rates over double in order to meet the Watermaster, what we would owe in 2021 for that payment. So it's been difficult, but we did the best we could, and we finally, it took months to get the deal all set up for the transfer. Yes, it would have been nice if we could go faster, but when you're asking people for favors, to perhaps transfer their water rights and stuff, when they tell you, we'll get back to you, you don't feel like you can push them a lot because you're asking for the favor. And so we did the best we could and as quickly as we could. And so, and we've placed all these other things. So we've been proactive. We did, all of the requirements that the Watermaster has asked for. We did not make payments because we were told by the Watermaster's office about the opportunity to transfer. And so that's why we started researching that. So we did not make payments towards our delinquent bill, it would be a delinquent bill, but it was the first time we saw it. But we have been doing everything we can. We're also in a situation in our water company where we're mitigating arsenic in our water, and we're in a program with the state to do that. And also the EPA got involved and mandated that we provide our customers with bottled water through the completion of the project at no cost. And so we've had that burden as well, that financial burden on top. And in our grant process, our community out here was designated as a severely financially disadvantaged community, as it is. So this has all been very difficult for them and for all of us to financially, especially with the pandemic going on as well. So I just, with all of that, I wanted just to come again and ask if you could please consider our request for the waiver of the late fees on top of the bill. So that's what I wanted to speak to you about, if you have any questions. Or if you need any documentation that we were diligent, I would be happy to provide that to anyone who wants it.
Debbie, thank you very much. And a question for our attorney, Craig. What is the status of this? And is there flexibility by the board to take any action on this?
My recollection of talking about the Mettler situation is a recognition that they're operating in good faith, trying to meet the demands of the judgment and working with staff diligently. But there was, at that time, the board, I don't believe, was entertaining a waiver of late fees in this situation, which I think total, Ms. Farrow can correct me if I'm wrong, this is without a document in front of me, about $11,000.
Yes, it's almost 12,000. But
yeah, it's really an issue of what the board said, let's work out payments. And so that's really what is in our court, is to get a payment plan with Mettler for the late fees for payment off of the $11,000.
And has this come before the board with all the information that Ms. Farrell has just provided to us?
Yes.
That's a good question. Maybe staff can answer exactly what has been teed up by Mettler. I know we had the discussion with the board about Mettler. I don't recall what teed that up. There wasn't a transfer application.
It was on the last agenda under the request for waiver of late charges. It was their letter and the invoices. We did discuss it at both the admin committee, the advisory committee, and at the board.
And was any action taken?
Staff was directed to go back and work up a payment plan agreement for the late charges, which we have asked Craig to work us up an agreement so that we can then present something to Mettler.
And was any motion made that was approved, or was that just direction?
That was direction.
And was the board aware of that time that we're talking about a severely financially disadvantaged community?
It was in their letter.
Okay. I would like to have this put back onto the agenda for the next agenda to discuss it one more time to see if action can be taken to waive the penalties. And Debbie, at this time, this isn't on the agenda, so there's no action that the board can take, but I have requested that it be put back on the agenda for the next meeting so that we can rediscuss it. And if you're available for the next meeting, we will actually make an agendized item. Will that be okay?
Yes, that would be really appreciated. One thing I forgot to mention is that that we are have been had to deal with our emergency funds to try and to get all of this done so that we could satisfy not only the 2016 through 19, but also the 2020, so that it was all taken care of and we wouldn't have, like a leftover balance to where, it would be delinquent. It's all part of the initial push to pay what we owe you, or transfer in that case, but we're paying someone. And so that money, we really had to work hard to try and get it to a point to where could we really afford, in case we do have a disaster or something goes down at our water company, would we have enough? And it's close, so that
Sure.
11,000 digs into that as well. So I appreciate you putting it on the agenda, like you said, sir. I really do. And for the people of our community, small community, and,
We will discuss it again at our next meeting and have an agendized item. And I think
okay.
I have spoken with staff, and I understand that your company and you have been incredibly diligent in trying to take care of all this and do it as quickly as you can. So we will have that discussion. Thank you. And we need to move on to any special presentations. I think there's
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible for me to get some numbers on a piece of paper where I can study this a little bit?
Numbers on what, John?
Just what the fees are, what the actual numbers are that they're talking about, what the fees are, what the late charges are, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. As part of the agenda item for our next meeting, we'll send out all that information, and we can send it out to you soon if you'd like.
Perfect. That'd be fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now we're on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, just 1 second. This is Craig Parton.
Yes.
Do you want, I assume the board would be interested also in the potential option of a payment plan. And it's our responsibility. We didn't get that done in since the last board meeting with Mettler, to work on language that would be acceptable to them as an alternative to a total waiver.
Yes, absolutely, Craig.
Okay.
We'll draft and then see where we're at and take final action at our next meeting.
Shall do.
Thank you. We're now on anything else from the board? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you to Debbie. Thank you.
Okay, we're on the consent agenda, items A, B, C, and D, payment of bills, treasurer's report, accounts receivable, and the minutes. You're going to do a report next?
Yeah, so if I may, before we approve the report, at our last administrative committee, Director Usgs requested that staff prepare and present a budget versus actual for 2021. Just give a snapshot of how we did and on expenses as well as revenue. So Angel's going to pull up a quick spreadsheet that we put together. This is something that Patty does a good job tracking each month. And we've got broken up into two sections. The top section that you see there is revenue. You can see highlighted in blue is what the approved 2021 budget amounts were on revenue. And then the green column is the total collected to date. If you could scroll down just a little bit, Angel. So you can see revenue is about $236,000 more than what we budgeted for in 2021. I should note a big part of that is due to late fees and attorney fees that were collected. Primarily, a big portion of that is from Phelan. And just a reminder that we are holding those funds until the appeal is final with the appealing case. And then down below we have expenses. Again, blue is
Matt, hang on. So if we were to take Phelan out of those numbers, how would it look? Just quick
scroll up
estimate.
a little bit. So Phelan was a good portion of that 145,000,
Okay.
the last row, and then a portion of the 95,000 attorney fees. So it's going to be pretty close to the over. So if you take out those amounts, 130 or 230, 240,000. So we're real close with what we budgeted as far as revenue.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, Matt, this is Adam.
Matt? Oh,
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. What about, do you know roughly the amount of penalties that we collected?
Penalties from Phelan?
No, from others.
I don't have the detail.
Okay.
Yeah, 145 is a total, but yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And
Hey, Matt.
Derek?
Matt,
Derek,
Yeah.
go ahead.
thanks. Thank you. So the question I had was if you, I know we brought this up before of how to recognize it on our reporting, and have you talked to our accounting firm just to double check? I mean, with the pending litigation, should we be recognizing the fees as well as other, the payment for that until that's been resolved? I just want to make sure, as a public agency, we're just cautious on that.
Yeah, since we did talk to the accounting firm and our CPA, and we do, since we collected it in 2021, we will show it as revenue in calendar year 2021.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then no further questions on the revenue side. Down below, we have the expense, kind of same format. Blue is what we budgeted. Green is what we've paid out to date. This through November also includes what's on the bills payables today for approval. So you can see a little bit over on expenses, and looking at the detail, you can see where that is. A big portion of it is in legal. Sorry, Craig, but that's about where we're at. And then the bottom line, USGS, we had budgeted 17,000. Actual cost was 68,000 for USGS. But just keep in mind, up on the expenses, we do show the revenue from the other agencies, being the association and the Irwin. So, Director Urosic, hopefully this satisfies your request. And if the board would like, we can include this report monthly in our financial statements.
Just a question. You did bring up legal, but at this point, we've collected the attorney fees on the revenue side, right?
Yeah.
So the legal is almost, with all that, is almost even, it looks like. Is it?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Matt, this is Derek, and this is great. Thank you very much. This is exactly what I think is good for us to see as a board, as well as to give the transparency to public and everyone else. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good job, Patty.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So
That's
anything
all I
else
had.
regarding consent?
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items A, B, C, and D?
This is Adam. I move that we approve it.
Motion made by Adam, and I think I heard John back there wanting to second it. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Second by John. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariti,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on to the advisory committee report. And I believe there's a written report. Anything else the advisory committee would like to add? Hearing none, we'll move on to committee reports. Administrative committee.
So yeah, real quick, this Matt. So the administrative committee met on Friday of last week, and we went through our typical items, being the payment of bills. We also talked about enforcement, which is we're gonna provide a detailed report under Craig Parton's report later. And then we also talked about the transition with hiring a new administrator for the Watermaster, and we're gonna talk about that under the administrator's report.
Okay.
So that's all I have, unless Derek and Adam have anything to add.
We also talked about formalizing a payment plan for late fees when there is hardship, as the case in Mettler.
Oh yeah, thank you, Adam.
And Adam, do you want to say anything about that now, or you want to wait till next?
No. I just wanted to point out that we talked about that. The board spent a lot of time during the last board meeting considering all of the circumstances and the good effort that was made by Mettler, and the decision. That's when the decision came up. We need to be a bit flexible in allowing people sometimes to make these late penalties, so we're consistent and being equitable with everybody else. So that's how that came about, and I still advocate that approach because it will come again and again and again, and I think it's a good way to work with the various parties to help them or give them the time that they need to make these payments.
Great. Thank you, Adam. And then item 9, consideration possible action regarding general counsel letter on water theft. That's item A. Any discussion? Craig?
This letter has been reviewed at least at the administrative committee enforcement division of that. No, I haven't had any changes. The advisory committee suggested adding a sentence. It's up to the board whether they want to do that. I think the letter stands pursuant to board input to capture the interests of the board in its concern about the illegal use of water. The theft of water is made clear, and appreciating the efforts of the Board of Supervisors in that regard. So it's open to comments from the board, but happy to take those back, or if it's approved, it'll be sent out post haste.
Okay, any discussion?
This is Adam. I'm fine with the content of the letter.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I think Gail and Kyle might have had something to add to this. Galen, are you on the line?
Galen, are you on the line?
That's actually in the
Yes.
advisory committee report.
Right.
Mr. Kyle suggested adding a sentence asking the Board of Supervisors to focus first on enforcement and later on any additional regulations after the illegal operations are addressed and destroyed. So that's the sentence that I understand Mr. Kyle via the advisory committee wanted added to the letter.
And what was the position of the advisory board on that? It seemed like I kind of like the idea that was put a little pressure on them to try to get this mess cleaned up. What did the advisory board have to say? on adding that sentence.
All I can say is it's in the advisory committee's report, and the committee discussed it and would like to add to the letter the comments made by Quartz Hill Water District, and then it includes some comments below. My understanding is Mr. Kyle is interested in having that one sentence put in the letter.
What would be the impact of that sentence, Craig?
Well, I'm not sure what it adds. We already compliment the board on their action to eliminate illegal requiring them to prioritize enforcement over doing more regulations. I think gets us involved in a policy suggestion to the board that I wanted to avoid in the letter.
Yeah, I agree with that. Other discussion?
I just wanted to let you know that I think the Kyles are blocked right now. I got a message from them that they're both blocked. If we can unblock them.
Thanks, John. Do we have a phone number?
They need to unmute themselves.
They need to unmute by a *6 or just unmute on their device.
Your phone.
I see Galen here.
But they're both muted.
Are we able to?
They have indicated to me that they have both unmuted with the *6, so I don't know what the malfunction is. But I guess I would like to go on the record that I personally support that addition of that sentence.
You know,
got a real message.
Yeah,
Rob, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Galen, I hear you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Galen.
That sentence that Mr. Parton wrote, and I'd like to compliment him on the letter. I like the letter. But that sentence was from Quartz Hill Water District's letter. Palmdale, let me read you what they said. Quartz Hill Water District stands with Palmdale Water District in asking the board to focus first on enforcement and later on any additional regulations after the illegal operations are addressed and destroyed. That's a perfect sentence. Our biggest water theft is coming from these illegal operations. And without putting that sentence in there, it's a little bit like kissing your sister. It doesn't quite hit home. And we need it.
So, Galen, this is Rob. What's the intent of that? I know the Board of Supervisors is working on regulations regarding the legal grow of marijuana. I don't know of any regulations they're working on, that's the only regulations I know they're working on. So is that what your intent is, or is there more that I don't understand?
Okay, Rob. The reason for that sentence is that right now there's a ban on growing it in the unincorporated LA County. And so what Quartz Hill and Palmdale were talking about, and all the people I talked to on Exhibit 4 are for this sentence, and that is to destroy all of the operations that are out there now that are stealing our water. And before they lift the ban, there may be restrictions that they may address later. That's what it's about. They're not just going to lift the ban to grow marijuana in the Antelope Valley without having some kind of rules and regulations on that.
Right, exactly. In taxes and much like the city of Lancaster has done. So
we're not taking a position on growing it or not growing it. What we're saying is destroy what's here because they're stealing our water, and then later, after you've destroyed these operations, then do your consideration of lifting the ban with additional rules and regulations. Very simple sentence.
Yeah, and I'm 100% in favor of destroying what we have in our valley now. That's the only.
Then let's state it in the letter, Rob.
Okay.
As the letter stands right now, it doesn't state that.
The letter does state that we're in favor of going after the illegal grows, right?
Right.
Yeah, but let's destroy it before we go on to the next point of considering lifting the ban.
Okay, I understand your intent. Craig, any further advice?
No, I understand. I just am concerned that it's asking for a policy movement by the board. I'd prefer.
There is no policy in there, Craig. It's saying destroy and then consider lifting the ban.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Galen, anything else before we go forward?
No.
I'm just going to go on the record stating that I support that addition of that fence.
Okay, thanks, John. Anything else from the board? There are no further comments. Is there a motion to approve item A, the letter regarding water theft?
I move that we approve the letter to approve the water theft.
Makes the motion. Is there a second? Is there a second to that motion?
Derek, I'll second it.
Derek seconds the motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
No.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Motion fails by a no vote by by John. Thank you. Item 10, consideration possible action on new production and replacement well applications. And that's going to be Phyllis or Kate?
Rob, I'll go ahead and take the first item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. They were bunched together. The replacement well application.
Yes.
This month we have one replacement well application. This well is for a domestic well in the Central Antelope Subarea. The producer is Duane Russell, and he is a small pumper by succession. He's requesting to replace his existing well because his well goes dry the majority of the year. Does anybody have any questions on this application?
Any questions on 10A? If there's no questions, is there a motion to approve resolution R2135 approving the Russell replacement well?
Move to approve.
Motion by Kathy. Is there a second?
Second by Adam.
Second by Adam. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2135 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item B, resolution R2136, and that's the Garcia new production. And will that be a Kate or Phyllis report?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So there's actually 4 new production applications on the agenda for approval today, and they each have a separate resolution for approval. And the advisory committee had recommended approval of all 4 applications. The first one is by Mr. Garcia, and that starts on page 48 of the packet. He's requesting 3.5 acre feet per year for a single family home, 4,500 square feet of irrigated landscaping, 500 square feet of irrigated crops in a small vegetable garden. And that's in the Central Antelope Subarea. And its location is shown in a figure on page 60 of the packet. This parcel is considered improved since there is a small home existing currently on the property. And the new house will replace the old one. And the applicant purchased the property from an auction and is not aware of any existing wells on the property. The the improved property is not considered part of the Willis class, so the applicant will have to intervene. Given the small amount of production and the obligation to pay a replacement water assessment, Todd Groundwater finds that the potential for material injury as defined by the judgment is negligible, and we recommend approval. Are there any questions on the Mr. Garcia new production request?
Hey, this is Adam.
Hey, Adam.
So I'm assuming you assessed the amount of water needed for the purposes identified in the application?
Yes. And the applicants are now signing the new production application forms where they're agreeing they can't go over what they're requesting as well.
Okay. Now, does this individual qualify as a small pumper?
No, because there's no indication that there was a well on that property.
Got it. So the individual will pay the replacement fee for all the water up to the 3.5 acre feet that would be pumped, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Thanks.
And just to note, Director Ariki, the applicant needs to intervene successfully before the application is finally approved.
Can you elaborate? I know what intervene means. I thought the intervening means to get some sort of entitlement to water rights. So it's required even when you are required to pay replacement water?
No, it's required when you're not a party to the judgment. Mr. Garcia is not a party to the judgment, so
Got it. Regardless if you're paying replacement.
he's got to get a ticket to the party.
Got it. I got it. Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, is there a motion to approve resolution R2136, approving the Garcia new production?
I move that we approve resolution R21-36. This is Adam.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
John will second.
Motion second by John. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2136 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item C, resolution R2137, the Bell new production. Kate?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I didn't jump in faster. I just think it would be important that we monitor whether Mr. Garcia has intervened in a timely manner or not. So I'd like to just have a review of that topic very briefly at the next board meeting at the end of January. If he hasn't intervened, we stay on that and not let it slip through the cracks.
No, that will be
Thank you.
fine. We appreciate that. And
This is Adam.
Patty, wait a second, Adam. Angel or Patty, are we in touch with Mr. Bell, and does he, or Mr. Garcia, and
Yes.
does he know he needs to intervene?
Yes, he does. And I would also like to hold on to the approved application until he does successfully intervene. That way he's not able to drill his well until he does successfully intervene,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Craig, is that okay that Angel holds on to that application until?
Absolutely. It's not finally approved by the resolution anyway until he successfully intervenes. So
Okay.
it's within the discretion.
And this is Adam. Mr.
Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, Craig. Is the application indicate that it's a conditional upon his intervening?
Yes.
All right, that's good. That's exactly what I was going to say. It needs to be conditionally approved until he intervenes successfully, I think, or something.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, now we're on item C, resolution R2137. Presentation.
So Mr. Bell is requesting 3.5 acre feet per year for a single family home and about 500 square feet of landscaping, irrigation, and 15 shade trees. And he's in the Willow Springs sub area. And there's a figure on page 74 of the packet that shows the approximate location of his parcel. And given the small amount of proposed production and the requirement to pay a replacement water assessment, Todd Groundwater finds potential for material injuries defined in the judgment is negligible, and we recommend approval of this new production application.
Thank you.
Dan, are there any?
So again, this individual was not a party to the judgment, right?
He actually is a party because his land is not improved, and so that puts him part of the Willis class. And so he's considered a party since he's part of the Willis class.
Okay. One comment, Retail Water Agency in the AV and even AVAC is very concerned about water conservation and climate changes and the amount of water being used and drought landscape. And, we scrutinize our customers very, very carefully when they come to apply for a water service because of all these water supply issues and the understanding that they could get worse in the future. I just want the board to be cognizant of the fact of this request for 3.5 acres or 4 acres. That's quite a bit of water. Now, I understand that these parcels are large. I understand people want shade trees or fruit trees. But I think we need to, Katie, maybe we need to look at these demands very, very cautiously and recommend drought-tolerant plants and things of that nature. So hopefully you keep that in mind when you approve these amounts. I understand that they're not going to have any material injuries to the basins, but I think drought is getting worse and worse.
Adam, that's a really good point. We do have them fill out that water conservation form where they kind of check what conservation measures they're doing. And I know that Matthew Bell actually kind of spelled out some things that he was going to do for drought tolerant landscaping. But that's a good idea to kind of make sure that their water request falls in line with drought tolerant water use and conservation practices. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion. John?
Yeah, I just noticed that it wasn't a unanimous decision by the advisory board. Was there some legitimate complaints that there was a couple no votes? The board needs to be aware of?
No. They didn't go.
No, they did not give us any information why there were no votes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Kate? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2137 regarding the Bell New production?
John moves.
Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kathy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution R2137 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Riki?
Yes.
Director Calandri?
Yes.
Director Urasic?
Yes.
Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item D, Resolution R2138, the Love's Travel Stops of California New Production. Kate?
All right, so Love's Travel Stop is requesting 10 acre feet per year for a gas station, a convenience store, a fast food restaurant, and a mechanic's shop. And it's on a 38 acre area. And the proposed well will provide water for customers, travel stop operations, and landscape irrigation. And it's in the Central Antelope Valley Subarea. And figure 1 on page 80 of the packet shows the location of their parcel, and it also shows spring 2021 groundwater contours. And the property is near the intersection of highways 138 and 14, and that's in the center of the Central Antelope subarea. Groundwater elevations appear stable in this area. And figure 2 on page 81 of the packet provides an aerial view of the property, and it's south of the Lancaster water reclamation plant. And figure 3, which is on page 82, shows representative long-term hydrographs. And the closest hydrograph, which is USGS well number 4301, that shows slowly declining water levels from 1997 to 2018, but stable water levels over the past 3 years. The applicant will be required to pay a replacement water assessment for its groundwater use, and no material injury is expected to be associated with groundwater storage or sustainable yield. And the average pumping rate of the well will be estimated at 10 gallons per minute, and maximum water use will be 10 acre feet per year. Those are not expected to contribute significantly to local groundwater level declines. And consequently, find that the potential for material injury, as defined in the judgment, is negligible. Considered part of the Willis class, since their property is not improved, and is a party to the judgment. Are there any questions on the Love's Gravel Stores application?
Again, was the demand assessed?
Was it appropriate, you mean, the demand they're requesting for what they're going to be using it? Yes.
Yes. And in your professional judgment, 10 acre feet is reasonable?
Yes.
And in your professional judgment, the landscape that they are describing is necessary?
They didn't really describe what the landscaping will be.
Yeah, because again, this is all, especially with the Wallace class, it's all going to be, even though it's a replacement water, it's going to be demand imposed on the valley going forward. So to the extent that these folks need to consider conservation in their requests, it really needs to be pushed and they need to be asked to do so. Like we do that with our customers, as I indicated before. We have green landscape ordinances that people need to comply with. We demand that they use native vegetations, and then we try to make sure that the amount of water that they use is at minimum. So we really need to apply that standard to these folks. So is this property close to any retail water agency?
It's on Avenue D in the 14 freeway.
Yeah, that's quite a bit ways. Okay.
And if you've ever been to a Love's truck stop, they usually don't have hardly any landscaping. They might have like a little medium that, just has like rocks and maybe a couple little shrubs.
And that's fine. That's what we need to make sure. But 10 acre feet to me is a lot of water. That is good for about 15 to 17 families for a whole year in our Waterworks District 40 system.
Adam, this is Rob. If you've been to a Love truck stop, they do have a lot of traffic going in. They have showers for the drivers. They have multiple restroom areas. So this is a business that I think is important for the valley, and 10 acre feet under those conditions doesn't seem unreasonable.
Well, and that's what I asked Katie for. She said yes, and I always take her word for it. But I still want to, all of us, to be cognizant of these issues, and where appropriate, make sure that we don't frivolously approve an amount of water just because somebody asked for it.
And Adam, maybe, obviously we don't want to stop approving these under these circumstances, but maybe you can take this to the administrative committee and bring up a recommendation of what we might add to future requests regarding the drought tolerant landscape and things like that, so that
Fair enough. I'm not suggesting that we stop these things. I just wanted to point these things out so that our engineer take that into consideration, which she does anyway, and I know she does. But I can't help but asking when I see these amounts. We started with 3.5, and then we escalated to 10. Now, I'll grant you that I didn't know the type of business, and I don't know how many people stop and shower and all that, and I appreciate you pointing that out. But I had to ask.
No, absolutely. I agree with you that if we want to put on more restrictions regarding drought-tolerant landscaping and things like that in the future, just like you would for anybody applying for LA County or maybe other water districts, that's a good topic for us to discuss and maybe add for future applicants, but so they're aware of it going into this. Okay.
I agree. If we're going to apply, we have to apply the same standard for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions of Kate? Hearing no further questions, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2138 for the Love's Travel Stops?
This is Derek. I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Derek. Sounds like it was seconded by John. Is that correct, John?
That's correct.
Great. Motion made and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve R2138, the Love's Travel Stops, by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on Resolution R2139. Mr. Nuno, new production. Kate?
Okay, this is the last new production application on today's agenda, and that starts on page 186. Mr. Nuno is requesting 3 acre-feet per year for a single-family home, 5,300 square feet of drought-tolerant landscaping, and a couple of trees. And his property's in the Central Antelope Valley Subarea, and that's shown on a figure on page 198 of the packet. Given the small amount of production and the requirement to pay a replacement water assessment, Todd Groundwater finds that the potential for material injury as defined in the judgment is negligible, and the applicant is part of the Willis class, and we recommend approval. Are there any questions on this application?
Any questions, board?
Just an observation. It seems like all of a sudden we're getting a bunch of Wallace class at this meeting. Is there a reason?
Well, I think a lot of the past ones have been Willis class as well. I think I haven't mentioned it. It's written in the letters, but it hasn't been mentioned before. But since it was brought up in the beginning today, that I'm mentioning it. And I think the Willis class, anyone who has an unimproved parcel is Willis class. And so that's the majority of the new production applicants approved.
I get that. But I just can't help but noticing, again, they're asking for 3 acre feet. The small pumpers typically pump up to 3 acre feet.
Right.
So.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Kate? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2139 for Mr. Nuno's new production?
Move to approve.
Motion by Kathy. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Donald second.
John second.
John
Is there
second.
any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution R2139 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item 11, consideration of possible action on transfer applications. We're on item A, Resolution R2140. And that will be
Kate again. It's Kate again. And the first transfer application starts on page 202 of the packet. And Craig and Martha Van Dam would like to transfer 1 acre-feet per year of permanent production rights to the 40th Street East Water Group. And they previously were called the 40th Street Mutual Water Company. And the 40th Street East Water Group is on the default list, but was approved 37 acre-feet per year of new production in May of 2020. Both parties are located in the Central Antelope Subarea, and that's shown on Figure 1 on page 203 of the packet. And 40th Street, yeah. And 40th Street East Water Group is buying the 1 acre-feet per year permanent production rights to become an Exhibit 4 party. And it's recently pumped an average of about 20 acre-feet per year. And recognizing that the transfer is just shifting a small amount of production a few miles to the south, and that the recent 40th Street East Water Group pumping does not represent new pumping, we find the potential for material injury as defined in the judgment to be negligible and recommend approval of this transfer. Are there any questions on it?
Hearing no questions of Kate, is there a motion to approve resolution R2140, the transfer from Van Dam to the 40th Street East Water Group? Board, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the transfer of 1 acre.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
Donald second. This is Derek.
Motion second by John. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2140 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. Item B has been withdrawn. That brings us to 12. Consideration and possible action on joint funding agreement between Antelope Valley Watermaster, the United States Geological Survey for the Groundwater Monitoring Program. And that will be a report by our administrator.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Paris. This is Matt. So as Director Paris mentioned, this is a consideration of a joint funding agreement between the USGS and the AV Watermaster for the second year of the continuation of monitoring the Antelope Valley groundwater levels. And this period covers October 1st, 2021 through September 30th of 2022. Included in your board packet is a brief staff report on page 226. Gives a little background. And the total cost share for the Antelope Valley Watermaster for this program is $72,000 even. The USGS is picking up $30,530 above and beyond the Watermaster's commitment of $72,000. So that $72,000 for the Watermaster is split up between 3 parties, or 3 entities, I should say. The Antelope Valley State Water Contractor Association has committed to 50% of the cost. The Antelope Valley Irwin Group has a current MOU in place for 3 years to pick up 25% of this program cost, and the remaining 25% is picked up by the Watermaster. So that leaves the Watermaster's share at $18,000. And that is the amount that was approved in our 2022 budget. So attached to the memo is the agreement with the USGS, and staff is recommending the board approve this. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Matt?
The only question I have is
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. So, Matt, at the admin meeting, committee meeting, both Director Urosic and myself asked about the duration of this arrangement. The board and I and Director Urosic seems to think that we have a 5-year arrangement. I understand what you told me about the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, the MOU, it only for 3 years. But were you able to look into that?
Yes, staff did look at the minutes and also review or listen to the audio from the board meeting last year where this item was discussed. And there was no mention of 5-year commitment. There was only discussion regarding the 3-year commitment by the IRWIMP group. And there's brief discussion about the association visiting this on a year-to-year basis. So that is what was discussed.
Interesting. I really seems to think that we have, or the board, approved this arrangement for 5 years. I don't know if any the other board member seem to recall the same discussion or not.
No, Adam, this is Derek. I do agree. I recall that, so I'm not doubting not you checking it. It's just surprising, and I think, maybe Adam will say this, but I'll say this. It's concerning that, we're obligating the Watermaster to a significant expense without the aligned counterparties agreeing to the same timeline. So that does put some concern, and I've heard that expressed by a number of the Exhibit 4 holders as well.
And just keep in mind, this agreement before you today is a 1-year agreement. So we'll have the chance to revisit it again next year. We have commitment from the IRWIMP group for sure for next year. And it'll be discussed at the association as well, future meetings.
Right, but the following year will be the last year, at which point the Watermaster Board is going to be giving an ultimatum either to pay the entire cost for the USGS agreement going forward or pull the plug on the agreement. And that was the discussion that we had last year. And that's what I recall to think that we wanted the Watermaster Board to get on its own feet, and we believed 5 years was a reasonable amount of time for us to see if we financially can afford to partner with the USGS as the only agency in it.
Yeah, Adam, and just speaking as the representative from AVAC, I know there's certainly discussion by AVAC board members that they have some questions about whether AVAC should continue the funding of this, but I believe this is coming up for the next year. And have we approved this yet or no?
For AVAC?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've approved through the association for this year.
For this year, yeah.
So we have the secured funding through the IRWIMP group and the association for this agreement today.
Yeah. So that certainly AVAC and the association are looking at this on a year-by-year basis, and the discussion and arguments have been exactly what you said, that we have to wait till the Watermaster Board gets fully funded and on its feet. And, there is pushback to that, but there certainly has been no agreement by the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors or AVAC to continue funding for 5 years. It's a year-by-year commitment. So, any further discussion? So you need a motion to
approve the joint funding agreement with the USGS.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the joint funding agreement with the USGS for the groundwater monitoring program for the budget years of October 1, 2021 to September 30th, 2022?
I move that we approve the budget.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kathy. Is there any discussion?
Todd, Rob, may I make a point here? Before approving this, I want to make sure that we put it in the agenda that we're working with a long-term plan of how, if staff feels that we can get to funding this internally, and just hearing the comments coming back from AVAC that they're continually evaluating this, I think we need to make sure we have a plan of if we can or cannot, and then what we do. So we're not here at the last minute having to decide whether we fund it ourselves or not, but we have a game plan going forward if we have to take it on next year.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Derek. And why tell you that? I mean, obviously, there has been agreement funded on a year, but there is board members who feel strongly that this is a water master duty. And there's some that feel that AVEC should still stay involved. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that, because it could come to the point where there's a vote not to fund it in the near future or far future. I don't know. So.
I happen to think the water master does get a value from the static water level monitoring, but also so does AVEC, so does Waterworks District 40, so does Palmdale Water District, and everybody in the AV. And that's why it was always, and AVEC gratefully did it for years and years and years and years. They were paying the entire cost. And then later on kind of became rightfully so, a shared responsibility among all the various parties, including the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, which also gets a value of it. So I still think, as I thought last year, that this should be a shared responsibility. I understand that there are different opinion about that, but I still share that concept that it needed to be a shared responsibility.
Thank you, Adam. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve the joint funding agreement with USGS for the groundwater monitoring program for October 1, 2021 through September 30, 2022 by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on to the administrator's report.
Yes, thank you. This is Matt. Just a couple updates. The first one being the administrative assessments for the fixed production right for calendar year 2022. Those invoices are going out in about a week from now. So everybody should be on the lookout for their first set of invoices on that. And then what's listed on the agenda there is an update on transition and plan for long-term administrator and staffing for the water master. So this has been discussed further at the advisory committee as well as the administrative committee. And the consensus is that staff is should work on a RFP that gives some options to the water master. That RFP will be discussed with the administrative committee and advisory committee during the month of January, in hopes to go out with the RFP on the street and seek proposals from individuals, firms, etc., that could move into the administrator role for the water master. So everybody felt that we went through a similar process, finding our water master engineer and legal counsel, and that has worked out well for the agents or for the water master, and they wanted to follow kind of a similar path. So that is the direction that we've got in a recommendation, and that is what staff is working on.
Matt, when we go out with an RFP, do we put what salary range we're looking at what benefits are available, and has that been discussed?
Well, what I envision is a proposed RFP. So they will tell us what they propose to do the job for.
Okay. And the administrative committee, is that what you envision?
This is Adam. I'm not where Matt is. It doesn't mean that I won't get there.
Agenda. On page 234 of your packet are tables for new production and small pumpers that have qualified that we keep up with on a monthly basis. And I'll just point out that you've seen these tables before. They've changed very little since the October meeting. There's only been one additional small pumper that has qualified. So that's the only change to these tables. So I won't say anything more about that unless you have questions. Okay, hearing none, I just want one more quick item today. I'd like to let the board know and our audience know that Kate White of Todd Groundwater is retiring from her role.
Oh no!
at the end of the year. Lucky for us, Kate has agreed to stay on an as-needed basis to support this project and to continue with ongoing transition to additional staff at Todd Groundwater. I don't know if you have seen the names on our participant list, but Arden Wells and Mike Maley with Todd Groundwater have been sort of ghosting these meetings to come up to speed quite quickly. They've been with us for several months now. Mike Maley, as you recall, will be the person that will be the primary groundwater modeler and moving us all forward with groundwater modeling as approved by the Watermaster Engineer budget moving into 2022. I'd like to just thank Kate in front of everyone for her amazing commitment to this project. She has done her typical fantastic job with engineering and putting together all of the water accounts. I think this is a little bit of a thankless job. There's so much involved in keeping up with all of these numbers and making sure that they're accurate. She posts them on the website and makes changes to them. We now, thank you for the support. We now have a new database so that we have very carefully cataloged all of our previous numbers that Kate had been really managing in a spreadsheet format, and we're going to be sharing that with staff and then, of course, throughout the staff with Todd Groundwater as well. So we have all of our numbers. I want to assure everyone we've got all of our numbers and all of our ducks in a row with that. But Kate has done an amazing job from the very beginning. She's put together all of our annual reports. And I'd just like to acknowledge her great work on this and her knowledge of the judgment, and she will be dearly missed.
Yes. This is Adam. I too want to congratulate Kate in her retirement and thank you for your service and for sticking with us and tolerating me personally, asking you all kind of questions. So thank you so much. You've always been professional, and I've always appreciated your forthcoming and openness. And good luck to you, whatever you end up doing.
Thank you, Adam, and for the kind words. And Phyllis, thank you for the kind words. It's going to be hard to let this go. I will be around next year to kind of help in the transition. It's been an honor and a pleasure working with you all for the past 5 years. Judgment's not a simple thing to implement, and I've been impressed with the thoughtful and cooperative efforts of everyone involved. So you'll still probably see my name around occasionally, at least in the beginning of next year.
Right.
Thank you.
That's all I have for the engineer's report. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Phyllis, and Kate, also on behalf of myself and the full board, I echo Adam's comments. You have done a fantastic job for us, and we really appreciate everything you've done. And we hope you have a wonderful retirement and look forward to hearing from you from time to time next year. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and good luck on your next chapter, whatever it may be. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to our general counsel's report. And
yes,
Greg?
Don't tell us you're retiring.
I would like to advise the board to consider Kate's offer of retirement and reject it soundly. That's how I recommend the board deal with this. Her knowledge of the judgment is at the highest level, and Phyllis also, and Todd engineering groundwater. So having her mind at the table has been critical to the success of enforcing the terms of the physical solution. So she will be sorely missed by legal counsel. Three things update on. One is the Phelan appeal. Phelan is appealing its obligation to pay replacement water assessments for 2016 and 2017, you might recall. And we filed a motion, and soon after the motion was filed, we entered into settlement discussions with Phelan, and they tendered a settlement check on July 1st of almost $1.6 million to include RWA's legal fees and costs and interest. And that appeal is now down to the oral argument stage. Next week on December 15th, there will be argument before the Court of Appeal on that. And then it's anybody's guess when a decision will come down, but we've already talked about segregating the funds and how staff has dealt with that, but I just wanted to update you that it is going forward, and knock on wood, expect a decision sometime perhaps early next year, at least in the spring, if not during the winter time. Second, just a reminder that White Fence Farms transfer application last month was accepted, conditioned on their right to intervene. And I just do this as a reminder that White Fence Farms has followed up and filed a motion to intervene. It's going to be heard December 17th. So I haven't seen any opposition by any of the parties to the judgment to that motion for intervention. And we'll see where it goes, but we'll keep track of it as we do all the motions to intervene, Garcia today being an example of that. And finally, the enforcement and list and priority list that's mentioned at 15C at page 277 and following of your board packet. The administrative committee has been addressing enforcement issues and directed staff to prioritize the focus of the enforcement effort. And we discussed that at our administrative committee meeting last week. And the result of that was staff's recommendation that resources be focused initially on 5 parties to the judgment, or non-parties in one case, that needs to intervene. And those parties are at page 277 of your board packet. And the charge is, before we initiate litigation with any of these 5, that we do a final letter now to each of them explaining what we've done in the past to encourage their compliance with the judgment, that to our understanding and knowledge there has not been compliance, and the next time they hear from us will be an official legal pleading. And we'll see where that goes, but we'd like to move forward with the letters, obviously, in the next few weeks, and certainly before the next board meeting, and then give an update in closed session if we anticipate we need to go into litigation to be in closed session with the board. That's my report, save for what I want to cover with you in closed session. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Pardon, this is John. You said, I don't think it's very hard to remember that White Fence Farms 3 and not White Fence Farms, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
and to everybody else's attention on numerous occasions. There's a big difference between the two water companies.
Yes,
Okay.
and you've mentioned that before, and I've should have mentioned White Farms number 3. That's
Thank
what
you.
this applies to. Sorry, my fault. I apologize. Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Craig.
Save for the closed session.
Right. And that brings us to item 16, board members' requests for future agenda items. As stated earlier, I would like Mettler Valley to put on the agenda again. Any other requests?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put the letter issue on the agenda again that I voted no for. I know the board is probably a little distraught with me, but I need to remind the board that I represent a very large group in Exhibit 4, and when I have numerous people that want that addition, I am obligated to make that vote. But I would like to have any of the board members who want to call me during the next month, but I would like to definitely get this on the next issue because I'm very sad that the letter is not going to go out.
Thank you, John, and I don't think anybody's distraught at you or distraught with you, but we appreciate that. That will be put on the agenda.
Thank you.
No, and I'd like to second that. John beat me to it. I think that there was consensus on the letter and a solid letter that Craig put together, and I think losing the momentum of providing feedback to those agencies is disappointing. So let's get it back on and find a way to get it out.
Great, thank you.
I also want to say that I hope there's a way that we can put the letter out and make everybody happy with it because it's important.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other agenda items? Hearing none, we do have a closed session today. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
This is Adam. I move we go into a closed session.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by, I think, Derek. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to go into closed session by roll call vote?
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Ariki?
Yes.
Director Calandri?
Yes.
Director Urosic?
Yes.
Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We will go into closed session. I'm going to give us all a 5-minute break, and we will start closed session right at 11:32.
Rob, do we just stay on the line or do we have to call it in again?
You just stay on the line. We'll take care of everything from here.
Thank you.